The Unplayable Podcast is proudly presented by Qantas, the official podcast partner and the official airline partner of Cricket Australia. Once again this season, Qantas is proud to be flying Australia's cricketers as they take on the world. Hello all, welcome to the Unplayable Podcast. It's been a big week in cricket. My name is Josh on a finger. Kane Richardson's here as always. And well, we've got a couple of domestic finals to look forward to now with the Sheffield Shield and the WNCL final set. It's coming to the end of the cricket season, mate.
It is. We've said it for a few weeks. It's trophy season. We've had one given out in the past week, haven't we, since our last pod? So
definitely, yep.
That starts to get the flavour of this month going. It's one of those times of year where most teams are disappointed and probably happy their seasons are finishing, but also for a couple of lucky teams, they've got something to play for now in this next week. So always an exciting time of the year.
It is, and lots of different states represented as well this season. We had obviously New South Wales and Tasmania in that one-day cup final, which New South Wales won, Victoria, South Australia in the Sheffield Shield final, and New South Wales and Queensland in the WNCL final. So lots to look forward to. We'll preview those finals as well. We've also got Michael Bevan, an interview coming up with the great domestic and international cricketer. Gee, he did it all, didn't he, Bevo? And he's coming up very shortly.
He did. It suits the theme perfectly, Josh. So you put in these, it's no accident when you put these shows together, the quality of guests you get to supplement the topic of conversation that we have for the rest of the program. But do we want a weekly winner? I think
we should get into the weekly winner.
We should. It's one of, again, a category that we're talking about people who win. We're talking about trophies. We're talking about winning. So weekly winner. I'm going to give mine to Greg Shippard, who's waking up today as, you know, he's no longer a coach of New South Wales or the Sydney Sixers. He's waking up probably feeling pretty good. You know, he's a free man. He can do whatever he wants today. He doesn't have to organise a training session or return any calls to some guys who maybe haven't been picked. So end of his, well, I assume he's not going to coach next season at any, I mean, he's available if anyone's out there.
Yeah.
But what a career. Tassie for 11 seasons to begin. He went to Victoria, his home state, 4 Sheffield Shield titles there, a one-day cup and 4 old Big Bash titles with Victoria.
Wow. Yeah.
He goes to he's the inaugural coach of the Melbourne Stars. Unfortunately, no one's managed to win a trophy for the Melbourne Stars, unfortunately. And then the Sydney Sixers for 11 seasons, 2 trophies.
Yeah.
He was an IPL coach and then he finishes his career at Cricket New South Wales with a one-day cup over, I think it was 3 or 4 seasons there. So we're talking, he's well over 10
that's
domestic
a lot of trophies,
isn't it, for someone of that career. So to him, weekly winner, well deserved. You can have a beer tonight and maybe reflect on all that success that he's had over the journey, but also his tentacles as a coach of, you know, the people that have grown up playing under him are now head coaches themselves, and Andrew McDonald being probably the highest profile one of those. So whether or not he continues on as a coach, his proteges are now moving up through the ranks, aren't they? So his impact on Australian cricket will live on.
And he went into coaching pretty quickly after his playing career for Tasmania, I believe, similar to Adam Voges, actually. So maybe we're seeing a bit of a pattern there. And, Shippy was also involved in, I think, maybe 4 losing Big Bash finals as well. So not far off, you know, having an even wider trophy cabinet there.
Well, it could have been double almost, which is unheard of. So, an almost unrivaled coaching career. But as I said, his legacy will live on through, you know, the Andrew McDonalds, Cam Whites. There's been David Hussey's been a Big Bash coach over the year. Brad Hodge has coached throughout the world as well. So that powerful Victorian team that he was the mastermind of, you know, you're seeing that impact of that team and his work kind of filtering through international, but also, domestic, but also international cricket now.
When you were talking about him having to tell players they weren't picked, were you referring to yourself at the Sydney Sixers or?
No, he didn't need to tell me that. I actually went to him and said, just don't even worry about it. I'll just sit over here in the corner and pretend I'm not here.
Now, it's funny you've gone with Shippy for your weekly winner because we never talk about what each other's weekly winners are because we like an element of surprise.
Yes.
And I've gone with Brad Haddon for this week.
Okay.
Who's going to replace Greg Shippard as New South Wales coach. He's been assistant at Punjab under Ricky Ponting. He's also did a stint with the Sunrisers Hyderabad. And obviously he captained New South Wales and I think even Australia for a couple of games in there. Lots of leadership experience. Now gets his first crack as a head coach. He's going to take over the Blues. No announcement been made so far on the Sixers or the Thunder's vacancies as well because Trevor Bayliss is no longer coach over there at the Thunder. But it's exciting times for New South Wales. A whole stack of new assistant coaches as well coming in. So Haddon's really going to get a chance to make his own mark on this squad.
Well, it is great. You don't typically see those bigger names that have, storied international careers go back to domestic coaching. It's normally they're looking for the top jobs, aren't they? So to get him back to domestic ranks is a great coup for domestic cricket, I guess. You just said Adam Voges' name before, but he's actually one of those guys who's filtering out of domestic cricket now. He'll stay in the Big Bash, but won't be around the Shield and the One Day Cup. So to grab someone of Brad Haddon and have him back around the domestic scenes, such a big thing for New South Wales. So, yeah, a bit of an unknown how it will go. It's one of those things, and I know from being a player, your assistant coaches, it looks like with the best job in the world. You're mates with the players. You've got your batters or your bowlers that you look after. You don't have to worry about selection or any of that. When there's tough calls to be made, you can always just be the guy that puts your arm around the players. But when you're a head coach, all of that responsibility all of a sudden comes with you. So I'm sure he's prepared for all of those situations, but it is obviously a much more stressful job than, just being the old bowling coach.
You would have played a bit against Haddon, I guess, through the Big Bash years, end of his career, start of your career. He always looked like a very fiery individual on the field. Is that fair to say?
Yep, competitive, fiery. I think my first kind of dozen games for Australia with him keeping as well, and he was a senior member of the team. So I remember team meetings vividly, his input in those, I was just like, wow. Yeah, like how we would talk about the opposition and their weaknesses and stuff, just the depth he would go into it. So, no doubt he'll bring that to New South Wales.
Okay, let's get into this chat with Michael Bevan. I was able to get on a call with him. It's during the rain delay, the very long 4-hour rain delay before the One Day Cup final last week. So that's what he's talking about when he's talking about Blundstone Arena looking very bleak and rainy. But great to chat with him about the finisher nickname, lots of amazing finishes in the One Day Cup and for Australia, but also taking a big bag of wickets in a test match. So here he is, Michael Bevan, the finisher. All right, after last year, Henry Thornton won the inaugural Michael Bevan medal for the best on ground in the men's final of the One Day Cup. We're now joined by the man that the medal is named after, Michael Bevan. Welcome to the Unplayable Podcast. How's it all going for you down there in Tasmania today?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Unfortunately, the news is not that great from down here. It's been a lot of rain throughout the course of the day, and then obviously there needs to get underway very shortly, otherwise there'll be no play. Although having just said that, like I'm looking out at the ground now, obviously got great views over Bellerive Oval, and they're just sort of pulling the stakes out now, and it's very light. So, yeah, look, there is an outside chance that there'll be a game on tonight if there's no further rain from this point in time.
Fingers crossed. Now, the One Day Cup final, it's a game that you had a lot of success in over the years. 9 finals you played in, 5 wins and 500 and something runs. Are there any particular finals that stand out when you cast your mind back to all those matches that you played in?
Yeah, look, I didn't even realise I'd been in that many finals, to be fair, which is nice to know or recall. So thanks for that. But yeah, look, the two that probably stand out for me, I think it was one of the earlier finals that I was in against Victoria. I'm pretty sure Dean Jones was around, Darren Berry was keeping, Flemmo was bowling. He was also in the team, and like back then in the one day competition, there wasn't not a lot of people turned up, and on this particular occasion, I think we got about 12,000 to the SCG for the one day final. So it was played in front of such a really nice atmosphere, and it went down to the wire. And so Too close again. I tended to play it that way. But on this particular occasion, I think we got home in the last over or something like that. It was a pretty low scoring match and a difficult wicket. And then there was a one-day final against WA over in Perth. I think it might have been early 2000s or something like that. Look, WA, we batted. I think we batted second. And, there was we were chasing a big score, and I ended up scoring 100. But I remember there was a little bit of pressure on prior to the match. A lot of talk that they were going to target me, and so to get a big score in a particularly over in Perth, which is always a little bit tricky to play in. That was another good memory in terms of the one day final for me. Those two matches probably stand out.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned those because I had a look at both of those before we came on. And that one against Victoria, you were only 22 years old. You scored 64 not out in that small chase, as you said. Pretty good Victorian attack there as well. James Sutherland, Tony Dodemaide, Simon O'Donnell, and Damien Fleming bowled that last over, like you touched on. Do you feel like this innings was a bit of a maybe a seminal moment for you, a coming of age as such, or sort of made you establish yourself on the national stage?
I guess so. I mean, you always break it up into one-day game and, the 4-day game. And, so I'd sort of announced or arrived earlier than that for the longer version. And from my perspective, at least from the one-day game in tight games, I'd always really had the ability, I think, to take it down to the wire. And so, look, it might have been for other people or people that were watching it, but not necessarily for me, I guess. But I think that sort of coincided, 22, that sort of coincided with a good run I would have had in 2021 maybe for New South Wales. And so, I guess it's just those stakes on top of stakes, and as you're establishing yourself as a player and obviously going for slightly higher honours. So, it was obviously a pretty important match from that perspective.
And you said that you generally tended to take it late. Was that a deliberate tactic by you to take it to the last over of the match? We always hear in cricket these days about batting deep and taking it deep. Was that sort of your philosophy as well in those high-pressure run chases?
Yeah, I think so. And I think one of the reasons for that was because I like to minimise risk and make sure and just have certain bowlers to target. And when you sort of have plans and you have certain bowlers to target, you can't really determine when they're going to come on, if that makes sense. And so quite often those bowlers that you end up targeting, can quite often be towards the end of the innings, because there's always that sort of match-up between strengths and weaknesses, and trying to find bowlers that make it difficult to score, et cetera, et cetera. So, look, it always ended up being that way, but I wouldn't say that I went out with a view to taking it deep. It's just it sort of presented or played out that way, and it seemed natural, normal, and it seemed like the appropriate sort of strategy in most circumstances.
And then you're obviously given the tagline, the finisher. I'm not sure if you like that tag or you dislike that tag, but it certainly stuck. And do you remember when it first did stick and when that sort of name came about?
Look, it must have been late 90s, maybe early 2000s. I think it came from the Indian cricket public, I think, or maybe the media in India. Look, I mean, obviously I liked it. I created a sort of a unique role there. And again, it was just natural to me. I didn't go out to create the role, but it just happened and I found my spot. And so, like, it was good. It was nice to know that I'd created something worthy of a tag or something different at least. But then, look, like if I'm being really brutally honest, I would say the last couple of years of my career it also became a bit of a burden to bear in the sense that, there's always that pressure to finish the match and get a result, I guess. So, it was nice, but it came with its a few tricky moments. I guess.
Well, just on pressure, because, I mean, watching back the highlights now these days, it never looked like you were under the pump or lost your cool in any stage. Was that just what it looked like from the exterior? What was actually going on inside? Were you feeling the heat, or were you someone who was, when you're in the moment, very cool and calm?
Yeah, look, mostly calm until, everyone has their pressure points in terms of run rate. So for me, it was probably 6 and over to go with 15. It was probably 7 runs and over to go with 5 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as it got to that stage, I started to think, right, well, okay, so it's now do or die. You got to bring it down. And so I always had those sort of levels. In terms of pressure on the match, I was either called in when the team was deep in trouble, or I didn't get a bat. And so when the team's actually in trouble, most people are expecting you to lose the match. There's no real pressure. You don't put a lot of pressure on yourself because it is a really tricky situation and difficult. And so quite often I find I'd go out into the middle and, when we were struggling and there was no pressure, or at least I didn't put any pressure on myself, then, you'd take it a bit deeper. And then I think, when you were a chance of winning the match was when I started to get a bit nervous again, or the nerves would start to creep up again because you had something to lose. And so for me, it sort of ebbed and flowed. It went from no pressure to, okay, we can win now, a little bit of pressure. And then the last couple of overs are, right, I'm dialed in on what I have to do to win the match here. And so you go back to then focusing on, what it is you have to do. So, a bit of everything at times.
That's fascinating, yeah. As you touched on, you did certainly carve out a niche for yourself, but were there any players that you did sort of model your game on as you were coming through the ranks?
Not really. I mean, I'm down here, for the Dean Jones Cup to present the Michael Bevan medal, and the guy that I guess thought extremely highly of in one-day cricket was Dean Jones at the time in terms of the way he played, and he was probably the first Australian player to. Oh no, well he was at least one of them to change the way it had been played and to put the pressure back on the bowlers. But of course, he did it from batting at number 3, and so. So look, I've got to be honest. I didn't. My role wasn't around when I began my career. No one had played that, and I sort of carved that out and made it my own. And it was different, it was unique, but it was natural to me. So I didn't plan on it, or I didn't watch other people thinking, right, well, if I play this way or I do this way, then I'll get a good result. It was just, it was sort of analysis, it was feel, it was combination of, look, I know what I can do. And, in the past, one-day cricket, batting at the back end was a bit of a slogfest, and it was viewed as that, whereas I was a little bit more calculating and clinical about it. And that was just really to do with my personality. And the other thing that I would also say is that I got fortunate in the sense that it was the role felt natural to me. I felt a level of responsibility as well. And so when you're in cricket, when you're looking for batsmen and finding where they bat best, it sort of has to be authentic, intrinsic to how they feel about the role. And so for me, playing that role felt completely comfortable, knowing that, I could win. I was at the pointy end of winning or losing a match. But of course, all throughout the match, every player had that same opportunity. It was just because of that snapshot and moment in time where it fell down to me. But so no, I didn't really have anyone. Of course, I had heroes and guys I admire, but no one for that specific role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And as you said, you're coming to us from Ballareve Oval, where you enjoyed some success of your own, certainly in the latter part of your career. Looking back at that 2004 season when you made the move south, I mean, the runs just flowed in all formats. 8 centuries in the Shield and plenty of runs in the One Day Cup. Why did you think it clicked for you when you made the move south?
I felt it was time for a change, and with that, a change of approach in terms of playing. And I think at that point in time, I kind of realised, my Australian career was done and dusted, even though I had overtures to try and make the 2007 World Cup, I think. And I was still probably playing well enough to make it, but Australia had such a good team by then that it was tough to get back in. So I think one of the things that you do is reflect on your career in terms of what you've achieved, what haven't you achieved, is there any that I could have done differently? Probably would have helped if I had have thought about those things throughout my career a bit more often and a bit earlier. But for me, it was at that point in time I thought, okay, well, how would I play now? I'm probably not going to play for Australia, or how would I play, without fear, or, what haven't I done in terms of my approach that I can implement now I'm down in Tasmania. And so I sort of did all those things, and I had a lot of mental cues and things that I wanted to implement and insert into my game. And for that first year, it just sort of really, really worked. It wasn't really a lot about the cricket side of things. It was more just me allowing myself to let go, to let my reactions take over, probably to be a little bit more confident and carefree than I'd been in my previous parts of my career. And so, when it all added up, I sort of got it right. And, there were certain reasons why it really worked. It was a really enjoyable season. And, of course, then there was the one-day comp, which was very satisfying as well.
Yeah, I think, was it Tassie's first win in 30-something years, and you were obviously integral to help orchestrate that. Saw that the Tasmanian community get around the Hobart Hurricanes last year. Was it a similar sort of vibe when the drought was broken for the Tigers?
Look, it's hard to say, because I'd come from a sort of a large state with quite a lot of trophies in the cabinet and a kind of a slightly different attitude, and so I was a Canberra-born and based cricketer to begin with at the start of my career, and there was a touch of Canberra about Tasmania in terms of just the minnows and the smaller, and always having to fight and claw to win matches, and let alone competitions. And so it was really interesting for me that first season in terms of the headspace everyone was at, how they played their cricket. I'm not so sure from a fan perspective or an administrative perspective, but a player perspective, it was really interesting to see, some of the changes that happened during that time, and obviously being a part of that as well. So it was, it was a enjoyable, interesting season for me.
It would be remiss of me if I didn't ask you about some of your exploits for Australia as well. Of course, everybody loves to rewatch and talk about that New Year's Day innings. Is that the highlight of your career, or are there other particular knocks or innings that sort of surpass that perhaps?
Look, it's one of them. It was what I was known for, and it sort of brought me to the one-day stage and the one-day team, and so I'll always cherish and remember what that meant in terms of pound for pound, in terms of the quality of the innings. Probably wasn't my favourite innings. I can think of a couple of innings that were, more important to me. There was a match in Melbourne early 2000. I think we were against New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up scoring 100 off 100 balls, and we needed to win that match to make the final, and we'd never not made the final for maybe ever. and we were, I don't know, in all honesty, I can't even remember what we were. We were sixth for
Oh, I've looked it up, Michael. 6 for 82, chasing 246. So
246.
a lot of work to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was a favourite because there were a lot of runs to score, not many wickets down, and it was a pressure situation. So that was probably one of my favourites. And I also sort of recall walking off that game and coming through the stands and, just sort of seeing my teammates' faces in terms of what I'd helped, achieve. It sort of resonated really strongly and made me feel pretty good inside. There was a series in South Africa where again they scored close to 300 or 290, and that they were big scores back then, and not again we lost a couple of early wickets, but they had a good attack, and again from memory I got 100 off 100 and helped manufacture a win, there, and then obviously the West Indies 96 West Indies quarterfinal or semi-final against the West Indies, we were 4 for 15. And it was just survival. So I had so I had quite a number of games that I thought, well, there's just probably more pressure on, than the last ball win in Sydney, New Year's Day. So, but it's top 5, yes, but I reckon there's 3 or 4 innings that I probably think more highly of, yeah.
And I guess there was also that World Cup match against England in Port Elizabeth. You and Andy Bickle, again, combined to get Australia over the line in, again, another high-stakes match.
Yeah, I just relied on Andy. Really, he was the man. He was a great sort of, bowling all-rounder to have at the crease. He was, he had nerves of steel, high levels of confidence, and, I guess one of the parts to my role is batting with lower and just kind of understanding and getting a feel for what they're capable of and how to approach them. And, Andy was definitely one of those guys you just let him roll with it because he thrived. And there was nothing I was going to say or that would help him switch on or believe that he wasn't going to win the match. And so, that was a great series. Obviously, we performed really well, and we had a couple of tough, difficult matches on that wicket where it was just popping and bouncing, and it was hard to get the spinners away. And so there was a couple of, from memory, like that 2003 World Cup with minus Warney, but we'd sort of progressed as a team there that we were just kind of good enough that no one really worried that Warney was missing, and we didn't really ever feel that we weren't going to win the World Cup, even though that, as you said, there was a couple of tricky matches in Port Elizabeth that could have gone either way. So that they were pretty fond memories, and also then there was, I think the favourite tournament for me was the 99 World Cup, just quite simply because we hadn't really become a one-day powerhouse by then. We just started. That was the beginning of it. And we were kind of faced with, because of a poor start and the way I think it was the Super 6 tournament or something from memory, that they had to, we lost a couple of early ones, and then we had to win 7 in a row. And at that point in time, I'd only ever played in an Australian one-day team that had won 3 matches in a row. So to win 7 in a row in a World Cup was quite an amazing feeling. And I think the great thing about that, at least from my perspective, is that we just had someone in every game that just stood up and just had a match-winning performance when they really needed it. And, like in most teams, you have sort of 3 or 4 match winners, whereas, just about we had 6 or 7 guys throughout the course, 7 guys throughout the course of those 7 matches that stood up and turned the match on its head whenever we were struggling. So that was probably my favourite memory of my one-day career in terms of the team aspect and the team performance.
I just love those photos of the team on the Lord's balcony after that win over Pakistan in that bright yellow kit. I mean, it doesn't get much more iconic than that, I don't reckon.
No, it was crazy. And, and I think from memory, the final was a bit of a letdown. And look, I think, and I know it doesn't happen nowadays because it's a global competition and everyone gets to play on different wickets, et cetera, et cetera. But back then, I had the same feeling in the finals, because I think we played Pakistan in '99, we played India in the 2003, and both wickets had a bit of carry and bounce. And at that point in time, most of the cricket that the Indians and the Pakistanis played were on subcontinent wickets. So you're always keeping an eye on the first over with Glenn McGrath bowling and seeing how much pace and bounce is in the wicket. And, through the course of the first couple of overs, each of those matches, even though they were World Cup finals, I felt that we had the conditions suited us, and so we had a very good chance of winning both of those, really.
That's great. Where do you keep the World Cup medals? Are they on display somewhere in your house, or?
Yeah, in my lounge room, and which is like it's difficult because I only have not a small unit, but I have a unit, so I've got to sort of put all the Michael Bevan fanboy stuff up and the shirts all plastered across all the bedrooms and the lounge rooms. And so, I didn't have those up for quite a while. It's only reasonably recently where I've actually just started to.
Brilliant.
Well, I sort of reconnect with what I did in my career, and and to revisit the memories more often. And I had quite a lot of memorabilia, and I got rid of kind of half of that to local cricket teams and stuff like that, and still keep quite a bit. Probably I don't even know what I'm going to do with it, I've got to admit. But some of it's in the wardrobe, and some of it's out on the out and about in the living areas and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. The more of it, the better. Now, just before I let you go, Michael, last week, Richo and I sort of asked our listeners who are the best part-time bowlers, and your name came up from our listeners quite a bit. Do you reckon you were under-bowled through your career, or were you bowled the right amount with your left arm wrist spin?
Probably at times both over-bowled and under-bowled, depending on how I was bowling. It was a crazy situation bowling-wise. There was a period there where I had obviously morphed from a part-timer into probably nearly a regular bowler from memory, and was picked as a regular bowler in front of Paul Rifle, I believe, on a green top in Port Elizabeth. And so, look, there were... I didn't enjoy bowl. Like, I didn't have any confidence in my bowling
Really?
In terms of landing the ball, which is kind of crazy that you can get picked for playing a test match as a bowler and still not really be 100% sure where you're going to land them. And so there was a little bit of trepidation and nervousness around that role, and also some irritation, given that I was meant to be a batsman and I hadn't really truly cracked the test team as a batsman. But my bowling, I took a 10 for in Adelaide, I think, before I scored a test century, which obviously never eventuated. But so yeah, internally, I was a little bit unsure. At times I bowled really well. And then I think it sort of all came crashing down. Like, I think I was probably a genuine all-rounder there for a while, but it all came crashing down in the Ashes in '97, I think, where my batting struggled and the wickets were really slow, and I really relied on a bit of pop, a bit of bounce, and I was overspin with the wrong one. And, I kind of found that, it was difficult to get as much traction in England than, back in Australia or South Africa, where I had success as a bowler. So, yeah, a lot of up and down series with my bowling, and a bit hit and miss at times. But, yeah, certainly when I was bowling well, I did a pretty good job.
Well, you got to take us back to Adelaide, that 10-wicket haul. Not many people can say they've got a 10-wicket haul in Test cricket. What happened that day?
Yeah. Well, I actually landed them, and a really good sign when you're bowling is when you bowl your wrong, and which is probably my major delivery. Like, if guys can't pick my wrong, and I know I'm a big chance, because you can get you can get away with bowling tripe and still get wickets because, if you pitch it a little bit shorter or a little bit fuller, they actually can't, they're unsure of whether it's a wrong un. And I probably had about 2 wrong uns per over. And I just think the West Indies, look, they got me on a day and in a test where I actually landed them pretty well. And they weren't, look, they didn't really pick it. Like, I think Lara picked my wrong un, and so he had an easier time against me than some of the other batsmen, some of the right-handers, and again, they were all right-handers, and so the wrong un became, a tough delivery when I landed it away to the slips. So, like I was, that was a good, I'd just come back into the test arena, and at the time I happened to be batting well as well. So it's kind of like when I was batting well, there's a bit of confidence there with the ball as well, and particularly when teams didn't pick my wrong, and which South Africa didn't, West Indies didn't, England didn't either, but because the wicket was so slow, they could adjust. And so, look, I always did better as a bowler when they couldn't pick my wrong, for sure.
And look, I'm just looking at the scorecard now. You've got Shane Warne bowling at the other end as well. So bowling in tandem with Warney. I mean, what a dream that is.
Yeah, I remember times in South Africa and obviously the West Indies as well. And, of course, it does make it, you have to give kudos to your teammates. Well, I do, because they were just so good in creating pressure, both defensive and offensive pressure. Guys like Warney, but Glenn, Dizzy, all those guys, they were – they were world-class bowlers, and so, they're always going to create pressure and wickets from the other end as well. So I really, if I landed them anywhere near where good areas, then wickets were going to follow.
Excellent, Michael. Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for running us through some of the highlights of your great career. Congratulations on the Michael Bevan Award as well.
Yes, thanks, Josh. Much appreciated.
The finisher, Richo, one of the great nicknames as well. Not just great player, but great nickname, and maybe that'll have to be a top 4 for future episodes as the best nicknames. But when it came to chasing in one-day cricket, domestic, whether international or for New South Wales or for Tasmania, there's none better than Michael Bevan.
Well, he's the pioneer, wasn't he, of as he talks about in that chat, but he was kind of the first to be tagged with that nickname, and there's been a few that have been, it's been bandied around since, but there's only one finisher, isn't there? But we've seen kind of MS Dhoni take on that role, I guess, for India for so long and make it an identity for himself, and then obviously James Faulkner was the modern day version of Michael Bevan. But I think when you look at his stats and the longevity, and no matter who he played for, he played for 3 states and Australia. He played that same role for everyone. And if he was batting at 3 or 4 in domestic cricket, he'd still be not out at the end of the innings. Or if he'd bat at 6 for Australia, obviously it was somehow a lot easier for him to make that mark. But it's also that is now filtered into the way T20 teams, one-day teams are built now, plays in that role to finish an innings. It's such a big part of the batting order, whereas I'm sure back in the 90s and early 2000s, you're probably just picking your best 6 batsmen that you can fit in the 6 and then just kind of working it out, whereas guys have a role. Tim David was playing that for so long in T20 cricket, so he's a pioneer and he probably deserves a lot more. You don't hear his name as much when one-day cricket is spoken about, but he's such a pioneer and set up that role for people to enjoy now. And yeah, I was just looking at his one-day stats before, and he touches on the 9 finals, which in itself is crazy to play. 9 seasons, to make finals, win 5 of them. But he also made over 3,000 runs at an average of 61. He batted 78 times, and 25 of those times he didn't get out, which is just under 1 in 3.
Yeah.
So if anyone going around who played against him back then who actually got him out, well done to you.
Well, that's a good point, yeah.
And there's probably a couple of run-outs in there, so they're pretty rare, the old Michael Bevan dismissals. So what a player.
And so they're his domestic cricket numbers.
Yeah.
I think didn't he average mid-50s in ODI cricket as well? So
he actually dipped a bit in form when he played for Australia. But again, incredible. Like to average that over a long period of time. And I remember watching him as a kid. He was my favourite player.
Was
and
he?
I actually had a pet bird and I named it Bevan.
Really?
Fun fact. So there you go. He was like, and I wanted the Millie Champion Hall or a Puma that he used to use.
Yeah,
And
classic.
I think they're making a comeback, by the way. But yeah, big fan of Bevan's.
What type of bird?
A budgie.
Like in the green and gold as well, maybe.
It was a green and gold bird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go,
So there you go. So I wasn't as clued into his domestic feats back then. I was more watching his Australian stuff. But yeah, I was a big Bevan fan.
Yeah, Bevo. That's
Don't know what to do with that information.
No,
but
I've lost my train of thought. But
there's a future big four as well. Well,
which is
pet names, you know. We're running out of content here, aren't we? I'll leave the big four to you.
okay. Yeah, I'll take care of today's. That's for sure. And then it was nice that we also got to ask him about some of those listener questions or listener responses about him being under-bowled. And he made a good point. Well, I've taken a 10-wicket haul in a test match, so I wasn't necessarily under-bowled. And we've managed to dig out some of those wickets as well from the archive. So stay tuned for those as well. But thanks to Michael Bevan for giving us his time and having that chat with us. Let's talk about the Sheffield Shield final, which is now locked in. It's going to be Victoria and your old mob, South Australia, taking it to each other for 5 days at the Junction Oval from March 26. The Saka, now they've been in the competition since 1892, Richo. They've never managed to go back-to-back. And back in the late 1800s, it was only a 3-team competition. So you've got a good opportunity. They never managed to do it then. Could they do it now? Brendan Doggett is a touch and go for that final. He would be a huge inclusion if they can bring him in. But they've got plenty of pace, depth as well, don't they, the Sackers? And so do Victoria. And maybe that's been a bit of a theme of this season. Most of the top wicket takers have been quicks, as has been the case for the last few years. And the two sides got to have a bit of a look at each other this week as well, playing out a bit of a tame draw with a bit of weather around in Melbourne. So hopefully some clear skies for that final when the week comes around. Yeah,
it was a bit of an odd one knowing that the possible scenario is going to pit two teams against each other again at the same venue a few weeks later. So once that Queensland kind of ran out of the opportunity, that game, I mean, the spice was taken out of it and everyone's looking forward to the final, weren't they? So you say they got to look at each other. I'd probably say they didn't show much of.
Yep.
Well, I mean, in saying that, everyone knows exactly what everyone does down to a T. So, but yeah, definitely fizzled out and everyone's probably preserving themselves for the big dance now. So, but in saying that, Brendan Doggett hasn't played or didn't play in that game and hasn't played for a while. So to get him back, a bit of a Shield final specialist, which we've said. So that'll be a huge inclusion for South Australia. And just to get themselves back in the opportunity to defend their Shield is a pretty good achievement because they weren't looking likely kind of at the Big Bash break. They've turned it around really well. And again, as you said, it's all been on the back of, well, as the same for Victoria, but the bowling attacks have been outstanding, and they have been for a period of time now for South Australia, especially with McAndrew. You've got a range of bowlers there, but the core that's kept them together over this last couple of years, and even going back a bit further, is a big part of their success. But also getting Alex Carey back from the Ashes and chucking him into that middle order as they did last year in their Shield win. So yeah, I think they'll be quietly confident. I know it's hard winning away, but with the new rules with the Shield and not being able to just being a boring draw, it's going to bring them into the game.
Okay, yeah, okay. And so, as Jake Lehman said, they lost their first 2 games of this season in South Australia, but since then they haven't actually lost. So are you giving them a chance? Or Victoria have been so dominant this season, so obviously deserve to go in favourites, but can you see a world where South Australia do upset the Victorians?
I think you can, with just the way the pitches are made these days. And again, you can't really just produce a boring. Well, it's going to be a good wicket. It's not as if they're going to make a typical green seamer, but I think over the course of 5 days there will be an opportunity for South Australia to, there'll be an opportunity in the game for them to be able to take and get in a strong position. We saw that with Queensland even last year. It is hard winning away in a 5-day game, but there's always an opportunity at some point to take that and be in the game. So that will confront them at some point, but it is hard. It's definitely hard. And Victoria have had a dominant season. They were basically guaranteed of being in the Shield final back at the Big Bash. Like it felt that way anyway.
Yeah.
So they're definitely going to be confident. But yeah, I'll dare say there's a good opportunity that South Australia can. I don't know how you would say it, but there'll be an opportunity for them to win the game, or at least get themselves in a position to win the game. It's just whether or not they can really capitalise on it. So again, it's great to see that finals now are the way they are, and it's not just going to be the old 900. You remember those games back in the early 2000s, which in itself, I mean, you wouldn't want to watch the live stream.
No.
But it'd be great to check the scores and be like, wow, they're on 700. They're 4 down.
Yeah.
They just lost their fourth. Like that in itself was, because that takes some skill, but it is nice to see games that are games and people trying to win.
Definitely, yeah. It's a bit farcical though when you get to 5 for 900, isn't it?
It is a little bit. But then you get part-timers bowling. And as we've spoken about the last couple of weeks,
love that.
Cricket lovers, we do love watching people who don't usually bowl get an opportunity.
Now, Victoria, they will obviously have their captain, Will Sutherland, and they'll have Scott Boland, who's been on fire in this competition. But then they've got to work out who else fits into their bowling attack.
Yeah.
They've had Sam Elliott, who's been taking wickets for fun this season. Mitch Perry's got a couple of fifers. Fergus O'Neill has an incredible Sheffield Shield bowling average.
Yeah.
Todd Murphy, he's a pretty handy off spinner.
Yeah.
How do you fit all them into an 11?
It's a good point. Who didn't play in this last week? I didn't pay attention to that. Is it Will Sutherland? Was he managed or did he play? I'll have to check this scorecard quickly. But
Will was there, yeah.
I would dare say that all of them can bat.
Yeah, that makes it tough too.
But then I'm like, well, can you find a way to play them all as well? I know, well, there's going to be someone unlike, because you can't fit them all in. But, I mean, obviously Will's captain, so he's in. Scott Boland's first picked.
Yep.
Fergus O'Neill's arguably second picked. You're going to need a spinner. Sam Elliott's made a pretty good case to be third picked. He can also bat.
He's very handy with the bat, yeah.
So, I mean, Mitch Perry's the one there who's probably unlucky, but again, he can bat. He's had a good year, especially he's come into form in the last few rounds. So, good luck.
Tough one, yeah. It was Fergus O'Neill who was left out
Obviously
of round
rested
10.
him. Yeah.
Obviously resting. But, yeah, it's going to be a selection crunch, which good teams often have, don't they?
That's often the result of a strong season and a good team, is that someone is going to be left out. So, been there. The one season I actually had a good year in Shield cricket. I actually ran the drinks in Alice Springs, and that was the end of my Shield career. So
you've shared that one, yeah. That's a real.
But that was my decision to be like, well, stuff this format. I'm not playing it anymore. But I dare say they would look forward. Mitch Perry's a young kid. If he does miss out, and we're speculating here, but he'll get another opportunity at some point in the next 5-10 years. You would think.
How quickly did you make that decision to throw them?
I think it was as the coin went up. Day one. That was a long 5 days.
Now, it was a bit of a dead rubber out at Cricket Central. New South Wales took on WA in the final matches for both Greg Shipperd and Adam Verges as their head coaches. And even though there was nothing on the line, we got a great finish.
Yeah.
4 overs to go. Sean Abbott had just taken the 8th wicket of the WA innings. Western Australia can't win this match, so they're trying to hold on for a draw. And then the umpires say the light's too bad, you have to bowl your spinners. I thought that was a bit of a shame, but, safety comes first.
Yeah.
And then Joel Davies manages to get a wicket in the final over and then has 3 balls to get out Albert Esterhazen, the new number 11.
Nice.
He gets off strike, and Corey Rockacholi, some great names down there in that
is.
lower order, manages to hang on. So that was a fun way to finish the regular season, wasn't it?
It is. It's always good to see games go down to that kind of, the last over, and you got 11 blokes, was it 10 blokes around the bat? And you got Salzman was bowling part-time spin because he's normally a quick, but he's coming off a really bad hamstring injury, so they've thrown the ball to him.
Yeah.
And he actually looked all right, to be honest. So interesting. Yeah, it's always, for the last game of the year, you want a bit of tense action, don't you? And a result that can happen. So, yeah, it was some good viewing. Cam Green back in the runs for WA in that game as well, which is always nice to see. Again, big names go back to state cricket and kind of show everyone again how good they are. So Rockacholi with 5 wickets. So he's a name going forward that's, again, going to keep being around the mark for that spinner spot if there ever is one that vacates. So But yeah, mainly the talking point was about the coaches, but it was a pretty good game of cricket that got played.
And Tasmania, they smashed Queensland down in Hobart, a real missed opportunity for the Bulls there. Unfortunately, their batting just didn't quite click at the end of this season. They were sitting in second place for a good bit of this second half of the season and just sort of fell away at the end. So disappointing result for them, but Tassie, they managed to finish with a really strong win and potentially take some momentum into next season.
Yeah, and they'd be disappointed again, no doubt. I tipped them. I just had this weird feeling they would, with Jackson Bird back. And as we talked about before, I feel like they got a good depth of fast bowling there now. So I feel like that was a bit of a missed opportunity for them. But as you say, there is always next year. And for Queensland, yeah, they'll be kicking themselves, no doubt, because it was there for them. That opportunity in the first innings with the bat to really capitalise and put themselves in the opportunity to play in the Shield final again like they did last year. It would have been away from home, but you'd learn your lessons from kind of how last year's final went. What can you do better? You've got big names in that team that came back. I mean, Usman Khawaja's domestic career or 4-day career is now done. So, and he missed this game through paternity leave. So, yeah, they'll be disappointed. Michael Nessa, all these guys, they're going to be another year older. You might not get that opportunity again. So, again, to be an opportunity to play Shield finals is what it's all about. But then to kind of miss that opportunity is a bit of a kicker. So, yeah, they'll be disappointed as they hit their Mad Mondays around the country.
And from Queensland's point of view, they were smashed with injuries.
Yeah.
But in the bowling department, so it must be said, it feels funny that it hasn't been the bowling that's let them down, it's been the batting. So, as you said, they'll probably head to the Brecky Creek Hotel and have a few jars just to see off the season, I imagine.
Yeah, they're probably not alone. It's 4 other states doing the same thing, isn't it? So, it's a weird time of year because I'm sure some of the bowlers have had really long, like Cameron Gannon, I'm pretty sure he played basically every Shield game.
Yeah, he did, yep, every 10.
Which is an amazing achievement at his age. So he'd be probably enjoying waking up today and having a beer this arvo and looking forward to a few weeks off, whereas I think there'd be some other guys who wake up and the disappointment of not being able to capitalise on, again, another year. Everyone's another year older. These opportunities don't always come around. So it's probably not something we focus on enough is those domestic cricket guys who don't always get to play for Australia like a Cameron Gannon but have these amazing domestic careers. You want to be winning trophies. And at WA have had 2 years now down the bottom. So new coach coming in for them, that'll be an opportunity to bounce back. But, yeah, it's a weird time of year for sure.
Leading wicket taker, Liam Hatcher. He's earned a drink too, I reckon. Amazing effort from him. 9 games and 43 or 44 wickets. So certainly a breakout year from him.
Absolutely. I think he took another, half a dozen for this game. So to do it at that ground as well, like to play a few games at Cricket Central, it's pretty flat there. So we talk about seamer-friendly conditions in the Shield at the moment, but it's probably not. He's probably the one guy who's been like, hang on, what about me? So he's at a good age going forward where if he can put together another strong summer next year with, as we've spoken about at length, the age of our quicks in the national team, he could be someone that kind of comes from nowhere and puts his hand up.
Yeah, okay. WNCL final, that's coming up on Saturday as well this week. It's going to be New South Wales hosting Queensland at Cricket Central. Jess Jonathan and Sam Bates, they're playing on opposition teams, but they both played their 100th match in the competition over the weekend. Jonathan, conversely, has played all 100 for Queensland, whereas Bates has played for ACT, Tasmania, Victoria, and now New South Wales.
Wow.
So really doing the rounds there. And she's been a consistent performer everywhere she's gone. Katie Mack recently announced, or just on Wednesday as we're recording, as the player of the tournament. Another great season for her, so consistent. She's been dismissed in the 90s 3 times this season. Unfortunate for her, but it's the first time anybody's ever managed that feat in the WNCL. So a little bit of a history there. Maybe not one you want, but you'd rather a 90 than a 0, wouldn't you?
That's what I was about to say. So there'd be a record for someone who's made the most ducks in a season.
It wouldn't be her.
Exactly. No, she's had a great season, same in the Big Bash, so that would be a really good final. Bit of a state of origin feel to our finals. SA Victoria for the AFL.
True.
And then Queensland, New South, obviously in the rugby league department. So two storied rivals in 2 different areas of the country. So be some passionate supporters getting amongst or down to those games as well.
Do you feel that rivalry when you're playing for South Australia? Like, is there that hatred or despise of other teams, or is it a bit different in cricket circles?
Well, I was raised being South Aussie to not like Victorians. Like that was a big thing. Like the Kick-a-Vic was quite a big thing, wasn't it?
Kick-a-Vic.
Kick-a-Vic. You're Victorian.
Yeah.
Did you?
Well, we didn't hear that because we
Yeah,
were.
but it was probably a smaller, like a little brother. So you wouldn't have a hatred towards South Australia because Victorian. That's why we hated Victorians.
It's like Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, a little bit of that, isn't it? The little brother thing. So there was definitely that. And if you're raised on the, like I said, the AFL state of origin, that was quite a big part of it as well. And that's the same in Queensland and New South Wales. Kids are raised watching rugby league state of origin. You pick a team or wherever you're born, you affiliate with. So I'm not commenting for them, but I was definitely raised as.
Yeah, okay.
When I played Victoria in cricket, it was like go a little bit harder. But also in saying that,
Really?
Victoria were amazing and they're full of like basically an international team. So I say that, but I definitely didn't say anything on the field to show my hatred.
So good luck to both the Breakers and the Fire this week in the WNCL
Who's
final.
your pick?
Well, New South Wales have only lost one match this season. They're playing at home. Alyssa Healy is going to be playing in her final match of cricket. They're going to be keen to see her off on a high.
This is it.
Talia Wilson, she's been a star. She's just been picked in her first ODI squad. And she's on the Scoop podcast this week as well. So if you want to hear from Talia, head over to the Scoop podcast. I would love to see the Fire make amends for last season, but I think I have to, if I'm tipping, I'm probably going to be tipping the Breakers.
Yep.
Is that
That's
fair?
Yeah, at home. I think so. Like you said, their season's been pretty amazing, but you just never know in finals, do you? What about in the Shield? What do you reckon? What's your feel?
Shield. Well, we've got a little bit of time.
Next week.
Yeah,
we can talk about that next week. We'll sit on that.
Okay, sit on that. But we'd like to hear who our listeners think
Yep.
is going to do well. So send them in. Podcast at cricket.com.au is the place to do that, or on Instagram if you want. And speaking of that ODI squad, Richo, we've got Australia over in the West Indies at the minute, playing some women's internationals. They're playing 3 T20s in St. Vincent. Beautiful little Caribbean island there. Those matches are early morning for Australia on March 20, 22 and 24. Really good time zone, actually. I think they're starting at 9 or 10 in the morning, and they're available on Disney+. So if you have that streaming service, then you'll be able to watch. And then some matches in St. Kitts, 3 ODIs, March 28, March 30, and April 3rd. So it's a very short and sharp little series, but a nice warm-up for the T20 World Cup. I think you said that you haven't been to St. Vincent, but I was there 2 years ago for the T20 World Cup, and it was a really beautiful ground, just a tiny island, really.
Yeah.
And it was the match where Afghanistan beat Australia in that crucial pool match or Super Six match. And we were watching the game, and Afghanistan were getting close to victory. I think they just hit a 4 or taken a wicket. I can't remember if they were fielding first or batting first. And there wasn't much of a crowd there, but we felt a bit of a shake in the grandstand, as if, you know, there's been a big roar. And we only learnt later that the ground was hit by an earthquake during the match. So the shake we felt was actually the tremor of some seismic activity. So
what was the number on the Richter scale? Did you
6.7, I think, in the end. So
decent,
not small. Yeah.
Is that a common thing there? That
I've no idea. I didn't sort of
once off
look into it, but it sort of matched out well with Australia getting shaken out of that tournament at the same time. So that's my little memory of St. Vincent, and I'd love to go back one day.
But unfortunately, you didn't get to go on this tour, but as always, the future tour program, I'm sure you'll get another. I actually never went to the Caribbean. That was the one place I never toured.
That's a shame.
So, but there was one during COVID, so I'm not sure it would have been the same. I withdrew from that, but even if I went, I'm not sure it would have been the same experience. Although I'm pretty sure the boys went on a massive boat at some point and had a party, so maybe I should have.
That sounds fun.
Should have gone.
Caribbean Premier League never came across your desk?
Apparently, it was a real tough one for. Well, I think the time it was leading into the Australian season, so it was always hard as a bowler to get over there. But also a lot of travel between islands. And
that's true. Yeah,
even getting there was a big commitment. So yeah, never got across the desk that one. Maybe one day as a coach or a journo. You never know.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Maybe we'll do it together one day.
Sounds good to me. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get stuck into this week's Big Four, looking at the best grand finals this century. Okay, Richo, we've had some listener feedback. A couple of weeks ago, we got you to talk about your favourite bowling actions, past or present. A lot of people agreed with your list, including Adam Rompel. He said, very good list, Richo. Shane Bond, definitely underrated, and that got a lot of likes. So
Thank you, Adam.
can't go wrong with Shane Bond. And Lord Humongous said Chris Cairns had a good bowling action as well. Another New Zealander,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit on the nose. At the
Yeah,
minute.
it's probably, we'll leave that one there.
Okay. Anthony Locke said Simon Jones.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
2000
Speaking of underrated,
2005 Ashes.
strong action. Smooth, yep. He was good. He was very good.
He could swing.
I always think of him, when he did his knee at the Gabba, that first test. I know he came back after that. Or was that after the 05?
No, that was 02, 03.
Yeah, it was
that
02.
one. Yeah.
Obviously 05, it was peak of his powers, but I always think of that knee injury, the poor, like first day, terrible. But he was a gun.
Should fast bowlers be sliding around in the outfield?
Look at him these days. They're everywhere. So, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Dilwak, he gave us a triple threat. He went Anderson, Akram, and Stein. Sorry, Stein.
Stein. He is. I did miss on that, but I kind of said Jordan Buckingham reminds me of
You did.
Stein, and I could have easily gone to him. He's definitely built in a laboratory for fast bowling, Dale Steyn, apart from his height, which is probably what made him so amazing. Imagine if he was 6'7" like Morné Morkel was. Like, there's another one. What were the Akram and
It wasn't
Jimmy
Akram
Anderson.
and Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah. Yep.
They're all
each
good.
to their own. Yeah,
There's no wrong answers.
It's to everyone's opinion, isn't it? Everyone's taste. Everyone has different taste. Left-handed, left armers versus right armers, swing. Everyone's got their own. Everyone's got their own look.
Did you play against Dale Steyn in the Big Bash?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Did he have the crazy eyes going?
Well, I think I faced last ball of the innings.
Oh, right.
When he was playing for the Stars.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just a little wide Yorker that I hit for one.
Oh,
so
not out to Dale Steyn?
Yeah, I was striking at 100 too. But he didn't have crazy eyes because it was he was just kind of going through the motions pretty well. I think he had like 3 for 20 off all, but he was again one of those for my kind of 20s that every time he bowled I wanted to watch. So
absolutely,
and a beautiful one of the best blokes going around.
Yeah, okay, great. So this week's top 4, Richo, to finish us off this week is the best grand finals this century, because obviously we've got the WNCL coming up. The One Day Cup's just finished. Sheffield Shield next week. It's trophy season. It's final season.
The Oscars.
So Oscars this week, are they? Okay,
They were.
I'll take your word
I think
for
they
it.
were.
Okay. So I've gone through the best. Now I've gone domestic and international, and so obviously a lot to choose from. So I'll rattle through these. Yeah. I'll get your opinion. First, I've gone for the 2010 T20 World Cup in the Caribbean. Australia women's beat New Zealand by 3 runs. Sophie Devine, last ball of the innings, 5 to win off 1 ball. She smashed it straight back at Elise Perry, and Perry's put her foot out, stopped a 4, stopped it going to a super over. Australia win, and the Australian men's team are there watching as well. You don't get to see that very often. So a nice wholesome moment. Australia win that one in Bridgetown. Number 3, I've got the BBL4 final. Sixers and scorches, Brett Lee's final game. Incredible finish, couple of wickets, and then a run off the final ball. Could have gone either way, that one.
Yeah.
So that was a classic. I've gone the 2023 ODI Men's World Cup. Australia beating India at Ahmedabad. Pretty incredible stuff. They'd look untouchable all tournament. And Australia, thanks to Travis Head, just get the job done. And then number 1, I've gone for the Ryobi Cup final in 2011-12, South Australia and Tasmania. Tied match. No super over in the playing conditions that year. A tie is good enough for South Australia. And Gary Putland is the hero for Australia.
Iceman, the finisher.
For South Australia. Yeah, the finisher. No, he went by the Iceman, didn't he?
The Iceman, yeah, from that night on.
Yeah, and so we actually did an in-depth look at that match on Stories After Stumps. So jump over onto that podcast if you want to have a listen to Gary Putland and Theo Doropoulos, Daniel Harris, those sorts of guys. Adam Crosswaite, reminisce about that particular night where Ricky Ponting was running without pads at the non-strikers end at the end of that match.
Famous one, that. So I had two in case you missed them, which I didn't think you would, but it was that one and the BBL 4 final. So Brett Lee's last game in Canberra, of all places.
Yeah, a neutral final venue.
Can someone tell us why that was?
I think they just wanted to try it out and make sure that there was no home ground
So
advantage.
that was scheduled pre.
Yeah, it was well before the start of the season.
So
They
if
said
Perth
the final.
played Adelaide, it was in Canberra.
That's right.
So they're trying to make a bit of a.
I think so. yeah.
Right, okay. So that lasted 1 year.
I think so. Probably.
But it was a great game. Brett Lee's last.
Yeah.
Moses Enriquez fluffed it. Sorry to bring it up, Mo, but it happened. That was a good throw. I think who threw it in? Was it Michael Lum?
Possibly, yeah. Because all of the field was in.
Yeah, they were
Yasser
in.
Arafat.
Yeah. He bowled such a good last over, dragged them back, and storied rivalry again between those two. So had the chainsaw going out like we
Yeah.
spoke about as a kid.
Like old times.
That was a great final. And then, well, I'm going to be biased, BBL8.
I thought you were going to mention that, yeah.
Well, it wasn't a classic final.
Well, it gets
Well, it
talked
kind
about
of
a lot.
was. I think because it didn't go down to the wire, the result was known probably with 2 overs to go in the game. But I think the twist in the game and being between 2 Melbourne teams, neither had won. It was on toast. Yeah, that's probably the other, that honourable fifth.
Definitely.
Because
Because a lot of the international finals I sort of scanned over haven't been that close. So I'm glad we've had some good BBLs and some good one-day cup finishes.
And they're every year, aren't they? So we're going to get the World Cup once every 4 or every 2 years. So it's probably harder to think back. Whereas BBL every single year, and you want a close one, or you want one that you can talk about for the next however long. And that's a pretty good list,
I think
Captain.
we've done pretty well.
Send them in if you think of any others.
No doubt we'll have some good nominations that we missed because, as you say, there's plenty that happen every year. So there'll be a few good ones in there.
But yeah, has there ever been a super over in there hasn't, has there? Big Bash final? Semi? Can't think of any. That would be awesome.
Yeah, imagine that.
That's high pressure.
All right, we'll have to come back next week and finish this off. Richo?
Always a pleasure.